Welcome, everybody. My name is Geoff Dohrmann, and I'm the host of our interview today with Ethan Penner, who is considering a run for the governorship of California. Many of you may know Ethan from his years with Nomura, where he was really known as the father of the CMBS industry. He really took and revolutionized the way in which real estate finance was done and is still done today. So he is somebody who knows how to go in and tinker with broken systems and fix them. So I think he's a welcome addition to the candidacy for the governorship of California. Welcome, Ethan.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
First question is, why in the world would anybody want to run for governor of California? I mean, why would anybody want to enter the political arena? Why would anybody want to put their personal life at risk? Why would they do this? Why are you doing this?
Well, there's probably a few reasons for this, Jeff, and maybe I'll address all the reasons at this point. I would say I believe that our political system and our political situation, and particularly in California, where I make my home, is desperately broken. And I think that we're entering a period of time where the price that I think our society is paying and will pay is just going to increase for that lack of quality leadership, both competent and I think importantly, morals based and ethical. And so I didn't see anybody like me kind of raising their hand to go do this crazy thing. And I figured it has to be done. I love my children. I love our country. I love our state. And I feel that I'll do it. If someone like me were to raise their hand to do it, I would gladly step aside and support them, but I don't see that today. Second thing is, and you know me pretty well, and you've known me for probably 30 years, I believe deeply in a purposeful life. I think that we're all brought here with some package of attributes and skills and shortcomings, and we are best, we feel our best when we're fulfilling our highest use, our best purpose. And I have had that great kind of pleasure of feeling that way, of feeling like I've done really good things for others. And I think that's the best thing, being of service to others and creating value for others. And at the same time, interestingly, when you do that, generally you benefit immensely as well. And so I know what that's all like, and I know what it feels like. And I'm inspired by this need that I see. I like fulfilling needs, and I did it in the past, as you suggest, and I see this being a profound need that I think I have some certain qualifications to fulfill and to satisfy this need, and it compels me to do it. And then maybe the last thing is very deep-seated in my kind of value system is the kind of Judaic teaching that's in the Ten Commandments of honoring your mother and father, which is extremely important part of the Ten Commandments. And for me is a guiding light every day. It's my true north. I ask myself as I live my life, would my mom and dad be proud of how I'm living the life that they gave me and their parents gave me, and that the sacrifices they made to bring me here? Would they view what I'm doing as honoring them? And I think that I took on this path of prayer in the last 7 or 8 years, and I pray every morning, and it's really, really affected my life in a very profound way. And this is one of those ways.
Now, California is a beautiful state, full of different climates and cultures and people, and it's a really interesting place to live. But it has problems. We know that the water systems are broken. We know the power grid is broken. We know that the forest management systems are broken, and the result is fires almost every year with smoke. We have mudslide problems. We have droughts. We have a homeless problem. We have horrible traffic. There's a lot of problems that need to be fixed. Do you really think that one person can make a difference in all of that?
Well, I absolutely do, and I absolutely don't. So let me explain to you both of those answers.
Mm.
I absolutely do believe that everything starts with we have to look in the mirror and we have to be accountable. And I think every human being has incredible capabilities that are untapped and unfulfilled, me and you too. And so I think that when one person, doesn't need to be me, it could be you, it could be anybody else, steps up and brings it really hard and commits to making positive change, that person will be an inspirational force that will bring other people to the table to bring their energies as well. So I think that as an inspirational force, one person can really make a gigantic difference. Now, that speaks to the limitations of one person. One person can't do anything. I can't even begin to crack into the political world and overcome the natural opposition that every change agent faces when they enter a field. As I entered real estate in the early 1990s, there was a natural kind of resistance to me as an outsider seeking to bring massive change to the system. It's tenfold, it's 100-fold, it's 1,000,000-fold that resistance that the political system brings to any kind of change agent who's promising to revolutionize things. And so I can't even begin to do that. I won't get the bat in my hand. I won't get to the plate to swing the bat without tons and tons of people saying, I believe this is the right path. I believe this man, Ethan Penner, is correct, and I want to go work with him. I want to fund him. I want to help him do this. And then if I do get this, go to the plate with the bat in my hand, there's no way I could run the state of California, which is GE on steroids, right? And all the different business lines that go into kind of bringing effective government to a state as large as California and dealing with issues as far-reaching as economic, financial, regulatory, environmental, homelessness, crime, et cetera, et cetera. Like you, like me, like most of your listeners and readers, we all pay attention. We all have ideas about how to solve these issues. But when Jack Welch was running GE, he had CEOs for each of these divisions, and those CEOs had teams in place. And Jack Welch's job as the CEO was to have a working knowledge of all the businesses GE was in, which ranged from nuclear energy to plastics to lighting to finance and others throughout the entire world. And Jack and his leadership team were really shareholder representatives to make sure the CEOs he put in place were doing their job and hold their feet to the fire. I think that that's governance. And I think that most people in government don't come from business, don't understand what I just said, and have not built the infrastructure to succeed in an endeavor as complicated as running a state like California. So I would say one man can't get elected. One man can't do the job, nothing. One man needs a lot of great men and women to coalesce around him or her, if it's a woman, to bring change to the world. But one man or one woman can be a very, very important instigator to bringing about that change. And that's what I hope I will be.
Now, I think most people tuning in would agree that the country itself has become pretty polarized. People tend to line up on one side or the other on issues. They don't seem to be very compromising or willing to compromise on their positions. And I think, social media, 24-hour news has all exacerbated and amplified this problem. How do you build consensus? How do you get people to start to agree? Because in order to make solutions happen, you've got to get, as you said, a lot of people, a ton of people support. How are you going to do that?
I have a couple of answers to that one too. First of all, I'm running as an independent, not a Republican and not a Democrat. And I think that we do live in a society. One of the worst things about is this kind of division where we're living in what I call a win-lose society. Every election, half the people feel like they don't belong in their own house, in their own neighborhood, in their own society. They don't feel represented. They feel like strangers in a strange land. That can't persist. So win-lose, where half the people feel like they lose all the time, creates a lose-lose scenario, right? Because if half of the society feels lost, then the half that's winning has to somehow coexist, work with, be married to, raise, teach, et cetera, with the half that lost. And that's a lose-lose scenario. So I'm running as independent directly in opposition to this divisive nature that our kind of partisan politics have created. I believe that 90% of us agree on 80% of things. I really do. And so as a governor, I'm going to focus on the 80% of things that matter. And I'm going to fix those things. Everybody wants better schools. Everybody wants safe streets. Everyone wants an affordable, high, decent quality way of life for everyone, right? We all want that. Everybody agrees that sitting in traffic for 3 hours a day is not an acceptable way to live a life, right? Everybody wants less taxes, and everybody wants government to be more transparent and more accountable. Everybody wants kindness in their society, kind treatment to immigrants, kind treatments to homeless, and kind treatment to each other and respect for, which is even greater than tolerance for one another. Everybody wants that. And so I'm going to focus on those issues, not the 10 or so percent or 20% of the issues that I think divide us and that I think takes up so much airtime and so much time in social media. And I'm going to gain the trust of people and build trust one to another, rebuild trust one to another over those common issues, those common themes. And by working together to achieve those things, I think we'll rebuild our community. And we'll go back to the community that you and I grew up in, where people still disagreed on the other 20%, but they worked together to build a great society around the 80%. And then they cared for each other and trusted each other, played with each other, and worked with each other without judging each other so harshly on those issues that they were divided.
And we talked a little bit earlier about your concern that so many people have given up. They've gotten to the point where they really don't believe anymore that any real meaningful change is even possible. And so they've kind of resigned themselves to this living hell that we've been living in, where conditions aren't what we would like, and there's no way that they're ever going to change for the better. How do you combat that?
This is the single saddest thing that I encounter every day. So since I kind of decided to go down this path, I talk to people, as you would imagine, every day. And my conversation is around bringing a better future for us and for our children and our grandchildren and the future of this country and the future of this state. And when I hear what I hear often is, you're great, you're perfect for this job. If only you could get this job, we would be down the path towards a better future. And then no follow through. The only follow through after that for many people is just, but you'll never get there. It's too hard. There's a natural moat around the political world that will block decent people and competent people and outsider people like you from getting in. And I think this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as things tend to be when people believe they don't have a future. Well, they don't have a future, right? It happens on an individual level, Jeff, and it happens on a societal level, right? So on an individual level, if I believed I was not competent to work in the working world successfully, then I might sit on the sofa in a little apartment and get social welfare and watch TV all day. And my chances of success would be roughly zero. I'd be creating my own self-fulfilling negative prophecy. And I think what I've seen is that that's manifested itself around politics in our state and in our country. And that is the reason we're stuck in the rut we're stuck in. And every day, if you ask me, what's your number one challenge, your number one job is to inspire a dreaminess and a hope and a belief that with hard work as a team, all of us can come together around a candidate like me and others like me that will emerge and change things. The lack of hope is our biggest enemy right now.
So what would you say to people to say, Ethan, you really don't have any political experience? How are you going to deal with politicians the people in the legislature, the people who are longtime government bureaucrats who run all these agencies, who see politicians come and go all the time, and yet they're still in their jobs doing their daily tasks of being bureaucrats. How do
Yeah.
you deal with that kind of a structure?
Well, I think that it's only going to happen if I win the hearts of a majority of people. I think that people are very down right now, very down. And I tell you, this kind of societal cynicism is the self-fulfilling prophecy that has led us to where we are today. If I don't combat that cynicism, we will never have change. But if I do combat that cynicism, if the power of the people can coalesce behind me and my agenda, there's no stopping the people. There's no stop because the legislators, politicians in general, they have one goal, Jeff, which is to get reelected. And so if their own people are energized around change and a change agent and changed policies, these are very savvy survivor type people in the legislature. They will know that their voters want this policy or that policy because Ethan Penner won very clearly and very transparency with a mandate for this policy and that policy. And so when Ethan Penner starts pursuing as governor those changed policies, when the legislature gets to vote on those Ethan Penner proposals, they're going to be reminded that the majority of their voters voted for it. And I think that is how change will be brought about. It's not, we've seen this, by the way, what I'll call the opposite of this in presidential politics. We've seen for the last 3 or 4 presidents, I don't know how far back, the improper overuse of executive edict, right? Executive mandate, executive order, which is bypassing the legislative process entirely to bring about change, which is not sustainable because those don't become laws of the land. Those remain executive orders that are overturned when the next guy becomes president. And so we have this, it's a lazy way to do it, and it's an imperfect way to do it, and it's an impermanent way to bring about change. I'm looking for permanent change. So I don't view this as Ethan Penner ramming things down the throat of an opposing legislature. I'm talking about the people getting what they want, and the legislature will not stand in there.
Now, I should mention that, there's a Q&A button down there. So if people listening in want to ask questions of Ethan, you can do that, and I'll see them and I will bring them to his attention when you post them. Ethan, you mentioned that your agenda. What is your agenda?
Well, my agenda is to invigorate the state of California and return it to what I knew it to be from the first time I met the state in 1970 as an 8.5-year-old boy who visited his recently divorced father who moved from New York to San Diego. And I was blown away by California, blown away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a true paradise. And for those who are listening, who touched California at any time in the 70s or 80s, and even through the 90s, but a little less so, they would know California was the closest thing to heaven on earth. There has never been a better place than California in that time. And I think that since the late 90s, it's taken a turn for the worse in pretty much every aspect of life. And I think that there are certain things that are responsible for that. I can spend the next hour, Jeff, answering that question issue by issue by issue, from homelessness to fire preparedness to budget imbalances to high taxes to repelling tax-paying companies and tax-paying individuals and too much traffic and too expensive lifestyle and lack of affordable housing, blah, blah, blah. There's every reason in the book. But you know what's interesting? There are a few common kind of common denominator. So like, what are the things I have learned in my life as a investor, trader, problem solver is let's go find what is the existential issue that's at the root of so many things. Now, maybe not all things, but at so many things. So if you ask me, what is the one issue, the single one issue that causes the ripple effect that creates all those other plagues that I just described? It's an imbalanced approach to environmental protection. That's the one issue. It touches most every other issue. So California has aimed for a long time to be the cleanest place, to be and by the way, that's not a misguided want, because as I said to you, when I first touched California, as many people felt, it's paradise. And so what do you want to do with paradise? Make sure it's protected, right? It's an amazing place for nature. And by the way, in spite of all of the problems that I just described, and like many people, I've thought about leaving the state over the last 4 years. What keeps me from leaving is nature. I love nature. My wife, as you know, loves nature. And we spend our vacations in nature. We just took our daughter for graduation on a trip to Big Sur to hike in Big Sur. So we get it. Our environment and our nature is our strongest quality in the state of California, and it deserves vigorous protection. But, and here's the big but, in the name of environmental protection, we've added layers and layers and layers and layers that are unnecessary and have run amok in actually undermining our society. So, for example, it's very, very hard, and it takes years too long to get permits to build anything, especially as you get closer and closer to the coastline. This has caused this kind of years and years delay to get approvals, has led directly to a lack of ample housing, which causes, in a supply-demand reaction, overly priced housing, particularly on the rental side, right? And so the cost of kind of fees and process and the long processes have added massive amounts of money to the and risk to the construction process, and as a result, we have less housing than we need to, and therefore, what is there is overpriced. It's just too expensive. That, weirdly enough, if you look at the ripple effect, leads to traffic, because more people are forced to live in the hinterlands where it's cheaper and waste hours of their life in traffic. So one wouldn't necessarily see the connection between environmental over-regulation and traffic, but it's a direct. And then what does traffic do? Perversely, create more environmental problems with emissions from cars. So there's this weird negative loop that all starts from, or starts from, bad overregulation with regards to environment and climate. I would attack that severely. I'll give you another example. Our water and energy shortages are directly linked to this. And as you well know, a state that doesn't have abundant energy and water is not a state positioned to have economic growth and economic vibrancy. So, and as a result, our taxes are too high because we don't have a proper tax base, because we repel businesses that can't be here because of energy needs, for example, right? So everything is looped, everything is connected. And weirdly enough, the one thing that so many things link to is this environmental overreach. And I will definitely be focused very heavily on kind of pulling the pin on environmental overreach, while still remaining vigorous in my commitment to making sure that California remains the beautiful natural paradise that it is today.
So you don't see it as an all or nothing.
That's the false choice that our bipartisan kind of like Republican Democrat divide shoved down our throats every day. It's just a false choice. We can have great business climate. We can have great building. We can have abundant energy and water, and we can have a very protective environmental system that keeps our state the natural beauty that it has always been and will continue to be.
Okay. I promised the people that we invited to do this that we wouldn't make this a long event. And I know there's more that we could talk about and we could go on and on. But this is the beginning, not the end. This isn't the last time we're going to have these kind of conversations.
Oh, we're in the top of the first inning here.
So what I would like you to do is just sum up bottom line for a takeaway for people to think about until the next time that we get together. And I hope there'll be a next time, and I hope that more people will tune in and join us to hear the messages. But we're going to post this so that more people can take a look at it. What's your parting comment for today's session?
I guess the most important message that I can communicate to our citizens in California and to the nation is that the very kind of unpleasant, disturbing, divisive, and unfulfilling political system that we see today is our own making because we've given up. We all have the power. Thank God. We may not always, but our democracy is still strong. We have the power to change this. And when somebody who's a decent person, who is willing to make sacrifices for that future, like me, stands up, he or she need desperately the support of the rest of us. And we have to overcome our belief that is self-limiting, that change is impossible, because once we believe that, our futures are locked in, and it's not a pretty future.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. Thank you for the people that joined us. Listen, I don't know whether we can pull this off or not, but I can tell you that I'm not going down without a fight. I hope you'll join us in this fight and make this become a reality. Thanks for tuning in.